Hi, everyone. So today I want to take you through a writing structure that will help take your writing to the next level. So instead of having a middle school writing that is not yet collegiate level, this structure will actually help you start writing more collegiate level essays, and it is called ACEIT. Or ACEIT CEIT if you are working with two pieces of evidence. So let's get started on learning more about what ACEIT is and what it involves. So it is an acronym that means five things: assertion, context, evidence, interpretation, and tieback. So let's get going to learn what all five of those things mean. So the first one is assertion. This is really your topic sentence for any short constructed response or body paragraph. This is not your thesis. This is really the sentence that tells us what your paragraph is going to be about. It is one reason why you believe what you do about your essay topic. So you could think of it as a subclaim of your thesis statement, because it has to relate to your overall thesis statement. And again, it's what your paragraph is going to be about. It will actually be the same format as your thesis statement, which means that it has to be defensible, precise, and insightful or nuanced. So, what does this all mean? So, as a reminder, this is what defensible means. Defensible means that it's not an obvious truth, that it does have more than one side, and it can be defended with text evidence. So while you may or may not be writing an argumentative essay, it still has to be defendable. You can't just make it an obvious truth. It also needs to be precise. So, what that means is it needs to be extremely specific and not a generalized statement about your topic. So, you want to get specific with this. And the more specific, the better for your body paragraphs and short constructed responses. And then finally, it needs to be insightful or nuanced. And what that means is that it needs to be compelling, it needs to be interesting, and above all, non basic. So, now as for where it goes in your paragraph, it's the first sentence of any and all body paragraphs or short constructed responses. So, now let's take a look at an example. So for this example, I am using the writing prompt, explain the benefits of using animals as emotional support in the school setting. So I am providing you an example of what an informative or expository assertion would look like. If you were writing an argumentative essay, you would need to include a counterclaim at some point in your body paragraphs. And we'll talk about that when we actually deal with that style of writing, which is not where we're at currently. So here's an example of an assertion. So this would be my topic sentence for my body paragraph or my short constructed response. More schools should allow cats in their building as emotional support animals due to their calm demeanor, which would help high need students dealing with stress and trauma. So we know what I believe about my topic based on the fact that I said more schools should allow cats in their building as emotional support animals due to their calm demeanor. And we also know why I believe that by the tag, which would help high need students dealing with stress and trauma. So this is very specific and tells us exactly what this paragraph should be about. Next up, we have context. Now, context is the part that is not in the DSA perfect paragraph, it's missing. You have to actually provide background to your reader on what is happening in your text at the time of your evidence. So it's a short summary of what's going on before your evidence. It's the background information. So here is an example based on that same prompt. In the article, Cats Shown to Decrease Aggression in Students, the author Katie Keene shares the results of a 2-year study on how cats affect students in schools. She interviewed and observed students' interactions with dogs as well as cats, and what she found was that dogs caused students' energy to be elevated while cats calmed student behavior. So, right there, you see I've introduced the article, that's the text. I've introduced the author. Those two things have to be done when you are leading into your evidence. It can be in your context or attached to your evidence. And then I provide a brief summary about what is happening and what is going on within the article. So, next up, we have evidence. So, with our evidence, we want an actual quote from the text. We want it to be what's called a micro quote, which means that it is short, sweet, and to the point. And you only want to use the most important part of the quote that proves your point, that proves your assertion. It must be introduced and it must include your citation. And here are some examples of what that could look like: quote, page, period, and then some others: on page, then the quote. And here is what that would look like. So, using the same article, there's two ways you could do this. According to the text, 76% of students became calmer while interacting with the cats. Then I have my citation. Here's another way. If you want to take your writing beyond grade level, then you should be doing what's called embedding your evidence into your context or your interpretation. And that might look like this. She interviewed and observed students' interactions with dogs as well as cats, and what she found was that dogs caused students' energy to be elevated, while 76% of students became calmer while interacting with cats. So, if you remember from the previous slide, I showed you my context right here. So then I just took my quote and added it into this, where with the part where it says she interviewed and observed. That's where I picked up my quote for my evidence and did what's called embedding. This is a really high leverage move that you can do to take your writing to the next level. So then what happens after we have our evidence? Well, we have to interpret it. We have to explain it. But in high school, it's more than just explaining. It is digging deep and interpreting the actual evidence. So you want to explain what the quote means, and you want to explain why it is important or why it matters to what you said your assertion is. What are the consequences? So here is an example. This clearly shows that cats had a positive impact on the students during the day, which is significant because most people think that dogs are the only animals that have a positive effect on the emotions of children and teenagers. It is important to understand that cats, despite their tendency to be aloof, allow students the opportunity to sit in a quiet environment, listening to the sounds of their purring while petting something soft and fluffy. This calms student behavior instead of escalating behavior. So, because I chose a really great statistic for my evidence, I have some place to really explain and interpret how this fits in and why I believe what I do related to my assertion. So, make sure that you're going deep. All right, because high school, collegiate level writing is all about quality, not quantity. Now, next comes what's called the tieback. This would traditionally be your last sentence of your paragraph if you are doing one piece of evidence. And so this is where you connect your evidence and interpretation back to your assertion and your claim or thesis. So it might look something like this. Therefore, it is clear that cats would be a healthy addition to a school's therapy program and should be included in the day to day lives of students. So you're just driving home what you believe about the topic. So that is ACEIT, one piece of evidence for your short constructed response or a body paragraph. And this is what it would look like. So here's what the paragraph looks like with only one piece of evidence. So you'll see in purple we have assertion, yellow we have context, the greenish we have evidence, the orange we have interpretation, and then in the blue we have the tie back. So take a look and you can see exactly how I put it together. I just used the graphic organizer to write everything out, and then I just combined it into one paragraph. And I know what you're saying right now. You're saying, wow, that's kind of long. Yes, high school body paragraphs tend to be a bit longer. So, what comes next is if you are planning to use two pieces of text evidence, then you are going to repeat this same process. And I'll show you what that looks like in just a moment. But keep in mind that if you are someone who really overwrites, then it might be best to stick to one piece of evidence. But to make your writing stand out, two pieces of evidence is better. So, this is what that would look like. Each paragraph would have two pieces of evidence. You would have a second C, a second E, and I before moving into your tie back. So, more specifically, it would look like this: it would include one assertion, it would include two pieces of context. So there's that first one. Then it would include two pieces of evidence. Here's the first piece of evidence. Then it would include two pieces of interpretations. There's that first one. And here's where it gets a little interesting because normally in an ACEIT, you go right to the tie back. But in an ACEIT CEIT, you have to actually transition to the next piece of context and evidence. So you want to put in some kind of transition statement. It could be like, furthermore, later, um, in the next chapter, we see, and then so you go from there. So then after your transition, you put your second piece of context, your second piece of evidence, your second interpretation, and then finally you put it all together to have a tie back. And you'll notice that when you do ACE at C it, there's only one A. So that is what a two evidence paragraph would look like. It would have everything twice and plus a really solid transition. So that is Ace It, See It. Now you know what it's about. Now you can write it. And now you will take your writing to the next level. I hope you have found this helpful. If you need any help, just let me know. We'll see you all later. Bye, everybody.